hello. I figured I'd pop on a few minutes early just so we would have some time for people to pop in and come in and say hello. Since this is going to be more of a discussion type of live this morning, I figured I'd come in and we get kind of the chitty chat piece out of the way in the beginning. For those of you who've been following me for a while, thanks for tuning in. For those of you who haven't been following me for a while, and this is the first time you're seeing me, this is going to be a live discussion about classic bag styles and where to find them, as I'm building out a blog post that's going to go deeper into that. For all of you who are sewing to sell, I think this is a really important talk to have right now before spring and summer vendor events and markets. Good morning, Sibby. Hi, thanks for coming in this morning. And so, hi, Sarah. So thank you all for joining me. My name is Genevieve. This is my channel, Thunderbird Handcrafted. I am first and foremost a sewist that has transformed and turned in my art into my business. So I hand dye fabrics, design fabrics. We have a print fabric business as well. All sorts of accessories and fun things over on our website at thunderbirdhandcrafted.com. But today I really wanted to talk because I am an artist, I am a sewist, but I have the beauty and the gift that I decided my route was going to be business. And I worked in the ethical fashion industry for years. And so if I did not share some of that knowledge with those of you who are trying to sew to sell, or even just trying to sew to make back the money to go put it in more fabric, because that's what I did for a very long time to support who's supporting the hobby. You know, I'd like to give you some tips and tricks on how to do that. So come in this morning, say hello to me. This is going to be a discussion. So if you are sewing, I understand why you can't chitty chat with me. You're focused on what you're doing. But I would love if you can talk with me. I would love for you to hang out and have a chat with me this morning. So I have my computer up in front of me. I wrote out some questions that I wanted to kind of dive into with you guys. And then I also have a couple little like engagement things for us to do. I do think by answering some of these questions and discussing this topic, not only are you helping me build out a blog post where we're going to like kind of compile all of this information, but I also just think this live in general, good morning, Jackie, is going to be beneficial for anybody who watches this on the replay. So as soon as I'm done with the blog post, I will make sure that that link is in the details of this live, so that when you do watch it, if you're watching on the replay, you can go check that out. I'm hoping to have the blog post done by tomorrow afternoon-ish to have it published. But primarily, I just feel like this is a good discussion to have right now. So yeah, so that's what we're doing this morning. I usually do 10:30 Eastern time on a Sunday. I usually sew something with you all, but we have been super busy with business over the past 2 weeks. As many of you know, we had our spring pre-order. It did arrive, but it is a lot to cut. So we've been busy doing that. I had my birthday on Thursday, my birthday bash sale, and my actual birthday. I celebrated with a nice big brownie fudge sundae. Yeah, the world is also crazy. My son is home for the weekend, so there's so many things going on here the past 2 weeks. I have several patterns on my tabs, and I also have some printed, but we didn't get anything cut out, right? Thanks. Yes, it was yummy. And it was like at the very end of a very long day. So my birthday, I am now 44 years old. I always have to like double check how old am I. I am now 44 years old. So yay to that. I don't feel 44 every day, just some days. So that's good. But hopefully next weekend, now that I do think I have a little bit of breathing room. Also in there, we did taxes, you guys. If you've ever had your own business, tax season is crazy on its own. But if you've ever owned your own business, you know tax season, owning your own business is even more crazy. Oh, that is a great craving to have, Jackie. Jackie says she craved brownie sundaes the whole time she was pregnant with her daughter and still loved them. You know, there isn't many cravings that you have when you're pregnant that you still crave after you're not pregnant. But I think all but one I still crave. I think, you know, if you get sick after your craving, then you probably don't crave that anymore. But all but one, and the one that I don't crave anymore is funnel cake, and that's thanks to my son. So, good morning, Vonda. Good morning. So, this morning we're going to talk about. So, I'm working on this blog post. If you haven't checked out my blog, you can go over to our website and check out our blog. My blog is threaded. Oh my goodness. Now I'm like totally forgetting what I named my blog. Threaded Trends blog is over on my website. And you'll see when you go to the drop down menu, you'll see I have a couple blog posts. And this is something that I started at the end of last year. I used to keep a blog on my old website. You know, when you change websites, a lot of times if you don't bring everything over, that is all lost. But I do feel like this blog in particular, I wanted to bring my followers and my customers a little bit more of that insight into kind of the business end of fashion design and fashion marketing, give you guys some tips and like updates on things that are trending, but also things that always trend. And I think that's more like what I want to talk about today. Is stuff that always trends, and for you to be able to be thinking about that when you're going through. I'm not even talking about purchasing new patterns, you guys. Like when you're going through your pattern stash and you're looking through there, decide what am I going to make for this upcoming market, or I want to make some money so I can go to that sewing expo, you know, whatever it might be. Maybe I want to go on a vacation, I want to make some extra spending money, whatever it might be, or I just want to buy new fabric, and you want to sell some of your bags. What really are those silhouettes that are timeless and classic, no matter what fabrics you use in general? Are they silhouettes that continue to be the ones people say, that's I like that style. So I do have some bags here that I have made, some specific ones that I'm going to discuss, but I'm probably going to leave that till the end, and we'll have, you know, a deeper discussion together at first. So does this sound like something you all feel, you know, is something we want to chat about? Because you know, sometimes I'm like, this is a great idea. And maybe it's not. So, oh my gosh. Sybil's like, I ate ice cream every night for 9 months. I mean, for a while I ate, we have ice cream a lot. In Pennsylvania, ice cream in the winter is like a thing. I don't know if that's everywhere else, but Vonda's saying yes. Sarah's saying yes as a beginner. She needs all the info, right? April, yes. Awesome. Okay, so this is something we do want to talk about. Great, great. I'm on, at least we're on the same wavelength, right? So the first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was, I think many times we forget as sewists that are getting, you know, every day in all of our groups and, you know, social media, we're getting like pummeled with images all the time. Like it's so different than what it was when I first started sewing, when, you know, even eBay wasn't even a big deal when I first started sewing. So, you know, I think we are just inundated with imagery, and that can be really difficult. As much as an artist, and I believe all of us who are sewists are artists, I do really believe that can be overwhelming, and it can also hamper, it can almost be a burnout in your creativity. So one of the things that I think is important to think about when you're trying to decide, you know, like what are the styles that other consumers are going to want, is to think about your own personal connection and experience to bags. I think so often we're so worried about what everybody else likes and what everybody else wants that we don't actually think about like what we like and what we want. So I wanted to ask you guys, and this is where we're going to start having the discussion. So I'm going to ask you some questions, type in your answers, because I do think this is going to help everybody in general. So what was the first bag you ever loved or had a sentimental connection to? Like really think about it. That first bag that you ever were like, this is like my favorite bag. And I personally, I had a messenger bag in college that was like this flap over messenger bag, almost a briefcasey type of bag. And I can remember feeling so empowered by that bag. It was like my first grown up bag, right? It was like this faux suede thing. It kind of had a little bit of slouch to it, so it was still cool. Um, I think I got it at American Eagle because I worked there and I could get it at a discount, so I could afford it. Um, and I still find that I gravitate towards those type of almost like briefcasey slash fold over messenger bag styles are one of the styles that like I continue to like. If I see it, it can even be scaled down. It's the one that I'm like, oh, that's my type of bag. So what was the first ever bag you loved? And really think about that, and like what is the sentimental connection to it, because many times you are not the only person with that type of story or sentimental connection to a bag. And it also, the shape of that bag is probably a classic silhouette, right? So like Sybil saying, the Fiona is one of her all-time favorites. A tote bag. She used a tote bag as a library book bag in college, carried it everywhere. In hindsight, I should have used it as a backpack. Jackie, I don't know that favorite bag before. I don't know that a favorite bag before. Now I know my favorite style for every day is a crossbody with tons of pockets. So yeah, I think just writing these things down and like really thinking about them for yourself can be really helpful to see, because not only are other people going to gravitate towards that type of styling or that silhouette that you make because it is a classic silhouette style, but also if you're the person selling it and you've already had a connection to that style of bag, your discussion and what you share around the features of that bag is going to be so much more genuine than a bag style that you really have no connection to. So I think that first part there is like, what were your first bags that you really, really loved? Like I also can remember when I was out of college, one of the bags I loved when I was traveling as a young 20 something that felt like I didn't need to pack anything. Good morning, Janetta. And one of the style bags that I loved, I had this hobo bag that was really just this like kind of patchworked crossbody hobo bag. And I can remember like traveling when I nannied as in Costa Rica. Like I can envision myself with that bag getting on a plane. So I do think that there are styles of bags that you will find that you have connection to, and also think about that actual silhouette of those bags, and most likely they were a classic silhouette of some sort. Um, so so think about that first ever bag you loved, or bags that you had sentimental feelings towards, because that really is important. So these are things where, and this is a part of what I wanted to ask as I wrote out some of these questions. I thought this would be great for like a little workbook. So I mean, I'm not gonna make you pay for a workbook. I think that's kind of crazy. I know many people do it, but I was thinking about adding these questions at the bottom of the blog post so that if you did want to create your own little notebook of your answers to these questions, that it could be helpful. So if you guys think I should do that, let me know, say yes or no, add it to the blog. And I could put those at the bottom of the blog to help you guys out. Jenna's like, yes. All right. Awesome. The next question I have that's kind of in that same line of personal connection is, do you have a go-to bag silhouette that you always gravitate toward? And then why? All right. I think if you've never read or ever seen a Simon Sinek video about Start With Why, and it's very much around like the marketing and how do we talk about things that we're sharing, The why matters more than the what and the how. Okay, so more than your features, more than the benefits of the bag. The why, the feeling portion of it is really, you know, why people gravitate toward things. But what is your go-to bag silhouette that you always use, and why? And so this is where I will share two of mine. So currently I'm carrying a Tuesday tote. This is my current everyday bag, all right? And it has, what features did I add in this? So I added the key clip. I added a interior, this is a messy bag, you guys. I added the zipper pocket, which currently is not closed. And I also added a slip pocket. Now I do have a pouch in here that I had, and my wallet. So currently this is my go-to bag. Now, this is my go-to bag around home. When I'm traveling, this isn't the type of bag that I take with me, but this is my current go-to bag. And I would say the reason why this is my current go-to bag isn't probably the silhouette, is it's a catch-all, and in my life at home, life is kind of a catch-all, because I'm busy at business all day long. I'm also on a school board, so I'm running places, grocery shopping, that sort of thing. This is my everyday bag. But the main reason that this bag, that I love it, is because it has a piece of my cyanotyping that I, did myself. This was part of, I think it was May's dynamic fabric kit. And it was the first time that I had cyanotyped on that scale. Okay. And it's very much my vibe of colors. So blue, denims, and neutrals. And so it's floral, like that's also very much my vibe. And like there's fun on the inside with some Kaffe Fassett cotton on the inside. But this is my everyday bag. So, but the why really for me is that I created this fabric. And when someone stops me, I'll be really honest, it's kind of almost, it probably is a little bit of an ego thing. When someone stops me and says, "Oh, I love your bag," I can say, not only did I make the bag, did I sew the bag, but I also made this fabric, which is pretty cool. So that's my everyday bag. Now, the other everyday bag that I was using for a while was my Louis waist bag, and I was wearing it as a crossbody. This one Amber made for me, the craft reporter made for me. And this was, I was using this for a while every day, and then I just felt like I needed to carry more stuff. I don't know. But this really, I wore this for a good 6 months. And I would say the why was also that a friend made it. That the inside, she had used some of my dyed fabric on the inside. But this was my go-to for a while, and I really loved that she made it for me, So I think remembering, like, not only like thinking about what is your everyday, what do you gravitate toward yourself, but why are you carrying that for current bag, and thinking about those reasons why. And then and this is where I'm saying writing it out can be super helpful. Answering these questions and then writing it out, and then just taking maybe 5-10 minutes where you don't look at it and go back and circle the things that are really the reasons why. Because I'm sure when I was sharing about that tote bag, when I was saying about my busy life and how my life is a catch-all right now, those are words that you can use when you're at a market and you're talking to somebody, they're looking at your bags, and you're being like, they're looking at the tote bags. They are busy people. They just need something to throw their stuff in and get going. How do you talk to that person versus the person that's looking at the simple Louis waist pack that they can only fit their wallet and their phone in, right? And a chapstick or something, right? They're probably also busy people too, but they're more minimalistic. They don't have as much stuff going on, right? So, so definitely, I think thinking about that, do you have a go-to style silhouette right now? And maybe think about, you know, the prior 6 months, what was that like? Because the style of bags we carry also have to do with the current season of life. All right, I'm going to read some of your comments here. So April says that she always gravitates towards the everyday tote by Bagstock because of the middle main panel and the features the main fabric framed in a solid. So that's really cool. Is definitely if you're looking for something that kind of has like a feature piece. A style I really love is something I can wear that allows me to have my hands free. I love a backpack for traveling and the mini travel sling for every day. That's Vonda's. Shelly says, good morning. Exactly what I was looking for today. Need a large tote for my studio. My favorite is the very large Consuela tote. Cool. Let's see. Shelly says she's like, I do the same thing. I also hand paint colorful daisies that I use for the main panel. Those are always my best sellers for the past 15 years. That's awesome. Let's see. I used to have the same style for up to 15 years. So this morning I was thinking how I could stitch it up. Awesome. And Sybil says that's more my size preference. Awesome. So I think it's important just think about these questions because when you're thinking about what sells, when you're sewing, it really is also where you have some personal connection. The other piece here, and I think April kind of like pinpointed this about having like she likes a pattern for a tote that has more of like a featured piece. I also had the question of what bag style do you think best represents your personality? And I think that also is a question to really like dive into, write it down, and then take a breather from it and go back and look at like some of the keywords that showed up for you, because that can really help you kind of differentiate like what is your kind of niche. Because I know a lot of times people are like so worried about niche, and I don't really want to have a discussion about that because I do think many times the best advice I ever had on what is my brand or what is my niche was what do I love. So I think that, you know, what bag style do you think best represents your personality can really help you with that. So, all right, so let's try something else. Let's do a little bit of like a live poll since we asked that question. I'm going to give you 6 different options and you're going to have to choose between these 6 different options. Okay, so we're going to kind of do a little bit of poll. Type your answer in the comments. Okay, so what's your go-to bag? Is it 1, a tote, 2, a satchel, 3, a crossbody, 4, a backpack, 5, a clutch, or 6, a hobo bag? So out of those 6, which do you think is your go-to bag? All right, 1 is a tote, 2 is a satchel, 3 is a crossbody, 4 is a backpack, 5 is a clutch, 6 is a hobo bag. Okay. I think it's interesting, like we'll see like where everybody is at. I'm kind of gonna take your answers and kind of create like a little something. But I think that this really thinking about what is your go-to bag. I right now I want to say a tote, but I will tell you there was a period where I was like, I'm not doing any more totes. I'm not doing any more totes. I'm gonna use something else. And so I think we want to gravitate towards a tote. But if I was really honest about what is my go-to bag, a satchel or a hobo bag is more my style. Janetta says crossbody bag. Vonda says crossbody bag. Until about 4 months ago, a crossbody bag. She's using a tote now, is Jackie. Sybil crossbody. So it's like tote, but I do want to make a crossbody. Shelly, large tote that I throw my small crossbody in every single day. I get that. April's like, yes, exactly. That's what I was typing. I think that is right there. Okay, so there was three of us who said that. We love a taupe, but I want a crossbody. Right there is an entire booth of matching totes with matching crossbodies. All right, so just think about that. Like just doing that poll, we found something that was a trend for at least 3 people in the group. Okay. So there's that. That's awesome. That's the type of stuff that I wanted to kind of pull out from this. Yeah. Yes, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about style and functionality preferences. I think this is also, kind of part of when you're thinking about what you're sewing to sell. We've talked about our own kind of internal, which I think is so important to do first, and many people skip over that part. Most people start with the style and functionality part, but I think it has to come second. Okay, so when choosing a bag, do you prioritize style, functionality, or both? Okay, so think about that. Do you first I don't care what's on the inside of it. I don't care if there's card pockets or any of those things. Do you just care about I like the way it looks on the outside, and I'm just gonna buy it off the shelf? Or do you look more like your first thing is does it have a place for my phone? Does it have a place for my keys? Do you look at that first, and that's the only thing you look at? Or are you really someone who looks at both? I see a lot of people saying both, but I would say think about what do you gravitate to first, because I would say all of us probably look at both eventually. But which do you really prioritize? I think that changes during different seasons of life. I would say when I was a young 20 something, I really didn't care about what the functionality of the inside of the bag was. I just liked what it looked like. I would say as I got into more my career and I got kids, I looked more at the functionality of a bag. And now in my life, I would say I I do look for some very specific features. Like I do love a good key clip because I hate digging for my keys. But I would say I still look at the style of the bag and the appeal of the bag first, like Vonda says. So, that's something to think about is when you're deciding these are the bags that you're going to make, are you going to focus first on the functionality, or are you going to focus first on the styling and what it looks like? Or are you going to make sure that you have elements of both? And when that part right there helps you decide specifically what patterns you're going to do, and potentially what hacks you're going to add to your patterns. You could choose to do a Tuesday tote, and then Shannon has all these add-ons, right? So, potentially you're going to say to yourself, you know what? I want a tote bag, but some of these functions don't matter because I'm focused solely on people seeing my hand painted daisies on the front. They're not really caring necessarily about what the features are. Maybe I'll have one or two that I really care about, but after that, it's the main focus is my art. So I'm going to go down through and see what everybody has said. Okay, so Shelly saying both. Jeanette saying both. Jackie said style, but if the functionality isn't there, I'll pass it by. Sarah saying functionality. I need pockets for everything. Vonda style first. It has to appeal to my eyes. Sybil says style first because you can tweak the design with add-ons. Totally. Shelly said, at this point, I really want it to be cute, stylish, and functional. If I'm carrying something that hasn't created, it has to be both. I have an art studio in my town and people notice. Yeah. So I think, and that's such a good, pull there. You might live in an area that they care way more about functionality than style, right? So really think about that part too. Some of that is regional. If people really care, and I will say I live in an area where function over form is definitely part of the mindset, where in the past where I've gotten really artsy about things that hasn't vibed. Now, you could be at an art festival, you know, like if you're going to certain vendor events or markets that are more focused around art, then that allows you to gravitate more into that artistic direction. But if you're really trying to sell in an area where, you know, life is life and we're doing function over form, then perhaps you need to think about the functionality of things more so than the art. Jackie's like, that's why I've hacked so many cute patterns with more pockets. Yeah, so really think about that. I think style, functionality, and which do you want people to look at first, or which do you feel for your area, your region, you need to focus on first. That's super important. So another question I had under style and functionality was, which classic silhouette do you find the most versatile for everyday use? So this is a personal question for yourself. Which one do you feel you can create the most, you know, versatile use out of? So I think, you know, like, I mean, we kind of go to patterns and we think about this, but you could really go down the line and make them all that way. So this becomes a very personal preference to what are you sewing. So, you know, you could add all those pockets to a tote, but then think about a clutch. And I think clutches also fall in the wristlet category. A wristlet can completely be made to be super versatile. And an example of that is the Tracy wristlet from Lynn's Handmade. So, and you could totally add way more to this than what, you know, is in that pattern. But so this is, and I think my wristlet piece is still in here. Yeah. So, you know, this clutch could be a clutch. It can also be a wristlet, right? This can also be a crossbody bag, right? If I add a strap. And then it can also become a waist bag because of how the design is. So I think, you know, really think about, just because it's a bigger bag does not mean that it can't have versatility. So I personally feel like if I was doing events this summer or spring, the Tracy wristlet would definitely be one of them on my list that I would be making, just because of the versatility of it, and also the trend of waist bags being crossbody bags right now. You could really create this in a way that it has the versatility of having the wallet already in there with the card slots. It has a little slip pocket. You can add your zipper pocket. You could even add an exterior little pocket on the back, a little snap pocket. So there's a lot. Don't just think that bigger bags are the only bags you can create some versatility around. Yeah, the Tracy wristlet is really good. How about a tote? So Shelly says, how about a tote with an attachable clutch with an optional crossbody strap? That's awesome. So I think also let's talk about the, oh gosh, it's gonna leave my brain. I did it several times here on the channel. It's by George. I'm going to forget that it's like the little compact that folds up. It's like a little tote bag that, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it. If you think of it, type it in. But like the little bag, because that had like a little exterior zipper pocket, you could add some other function, but that's like a compact little bag that has lots of versatility, that it can be used for so many different things. You know what I'm talking about. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it right now, but zip away tote. The zip away tote. That was a really great versatile pattern that originally, you know, most people were talking about like, oh, it's great for your grocery store bag or whatever, but just adding some little features to that could create a more versatile type of tote bag that zips away and is compact. So think about that. Okay, so let's do another little kind of rapid fire type of this or that game, okay, for some engagement. So I'm going to say 2 types of bags, okay, and you're going to tell me which one you prefer, okay? So tote bag or backpack? Which one do you prefer? Tote bag or backpack? You have to choose tote bag or backpack. Tote bag, Shelly's tote bag. Jackie's tote, I think. I know it's hard. Tote bag, especially if you're a traveler, this one is kind of hard. We have a backpack. April's like, I can't choose. Janetta, tote bag. April, you have to choose tote bag or backpack. So, okay, tote bag or backpack is the first one. Vaughn is like backpack. April's tote bag. You got it. You got it, April. Tote bag. Tote bag from Sybil. The only reason is because a tote is easier to get into without taking it off. True. Okay, Jackie. I personally, if I have to choose, and I made April choose, so I'll have to choose too. Backpack would be my first option, just because of the amount of travel I do and hope to do. I should do a backpack. Now Jackie's going back and forth. Okay, next one. This or that. Okay, ready? Structured or slouchy? Structured or slouchy? This isn't about sewing. This is your personal preference. Okay, structured or slouchy? Which do you prefer, structured or slouchy? Shelly's structured. April's structured. Absolutely structured. Jackie's structured, easy choice. Okay. I'm going to be the oddball here. I prefer slouchy. But it's so hard to do in sewing, I think, to a certain extent. Because I think what you see in the name brands out there most of the time is structured, and we almost are I personally feel we're almost programmed to emulate them. But I do love a good slouchy hobo bag. I just feel like slouchy and many tote bags are kind of more slouchy as well. So slouchy is my choice. All right, next one. All right, this one might be magnetic closure or zipper closure. Which do you prefer? Magnetic closure or zipper closure? No closure. No closure. Zipper. Not what you like to do, but what you prefer when you're like looking for a bag. Zipper, Janetta's zipper. Zipper for security, but it really depends on the bag, its purpose. Okay. Jackie's like trying to add more. Vonda zipper. Okay, I personally, this one is a hard one for me. If the zipper has like a really true zipper bag and not the crappy little, I'm sorry, I'm using that word, but it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, like the extended zipper thing that happens and you put the little zipper end on, it really bothers me. So I would, if it's like that, I would prefer a magnetic closure over a zipper, but I'll say zipper too. Shelly's saying flap. I didn't give that as an option, but if I could take a flap over a zipper, Shelly, I'd be with you probably. Okay, next, and this one's gonna hurt my feelings, but I figured I'd put it on there. Classic leather or hand-dyed fabric? I can't believe I put that one on there. It's like definitely going to, like, I can't look at these answers after the live of what people put after the live. Jackie's like, honest, hand-dyed. I love you, Jackie. I'll tell you my answer because this one's really hard for me. Okay. Shelly. I do love a hand-dyed exterior fabric like bag. I think like, and I'll show you one that I have that is just like, there's ways to like really do it justice. but I really do love a classic leather bag, and it's why for 8 years I worked for an ethical fashion company that all of their bags were leather. Um, and so I really do love a classic leather bag. However, I will go with Shelly that I do love a leather or faux leather, whatever, like a very classic style bag, and the interior being dyed fabric because it just elevates it. But I'll show you this bag, which I consider this a hobo style bag, even though it has a strap and is a crossbody. This is the Aphrodite from Needle and Anchor. And so this is a way that you can do the hand dyed with the leather or vinyl accents, and really make a feature out of it. So this here is linen cotton canvas that I had dyed. So, you know, I do think that there's ways to make the hand dyed the feature, but I do still really love an all leather or all like some type of vinyl exterior bag, but having the hand dyed on the inside. So cool. So those are some things, like I feel like sometimes doing a this or that game for yourself can be really helpful when you're narrowing down what you want to create for a market or for a craft fair, because it can really help you kind of, I know sometimes I get this way. I have all these ideas and I know I need to narrow them down. If you watched my past video from a very long time ago where I talked about like the 3 different types of products to have at your booth, you know, to have like the go-to, everyone can get it, and it's a more of a kind of a value added price. And then you have your high end, and then you have that kind of gifting item. I try to keep myself to those things, and it can be really overwhelming to kind of narrow all that down. So a this or that game can kind of be pretty helpful with that. All right. Last in the style and functionality questions I had, are there any bag silhouettes you love the look, but you never actually use? And I think this can be, as a sewist and with all the patterns that we see all the time, sometimes I'm like the bandwagon thing, the FOMO of like everyone's making this pattern. It's not really a style I would like, but you know what? I'll make it. And then you end up kind of stuck with it because it's not out of the norm of what you would normally make. And now you're the one who's stuck with it. Because it's not one that your audience necessarily is used to you making and selling. Not that we don't want to elevate ourselves and we don't want to learn new skills, because I think that's very important. But if you are sewing to sell, I think sometimes remembering like, oh, I don't need to make everything is important. Let me see. So I need you to force me to choose only one option, because then I end up doing both. April. Yes, very structured small bags with chains. Slouchy bags are not Sarah's thing. So I think, yeah, anything with a flap, messenger bag. They're gorgeous, but I'm not drawn to them. I do want to make the Diane crossbody though, which brings up, okay, that's great. So I think like that's really where like sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that. So I just wanted to bring that up of like, are there bag silhouettes you're like, I like looking at that, but no, that's not for me. Kind of think about that. Chains hurt my shoulder. So, you know, this whole kind of the trend of going with the chain could not be your thing. But there are now there are the, you know, the chain extensions where people are making like the strap piece, right, to go on the shoulder, and then they have the chain extensions. So it could be a way that you're still able to offer the trend, but actually be able to say to the person, you know, like when they're looking at it, I decided to do my bag straps this way because anytime I've ever used a chain as a strap, it's always dug into me, and I wanted to make sure that if my customers were buying bags that they weren't dealing with that same thing. So it's a really good way to kind of show your thoughtfulness and care for the customer, but also from your own personal perspective. April, short-handled bags, like the ones that only go on your elbow, like Sophia, right? Fold over Fiona, easy and fun to make, but I wouldn't carry it. Awesome. So there's definitely, I feel like there you're getting sometimes the stuff you wouldn't do helps you way more than the stuff you would do. So I wanted to make sure there was a question like that. Next, we're going to go dive into the thing I love, which is trends and evolution in bag styling. Have you noticed any certain classic bag styles making a comeback? So I think that is where, and we actually, April just brought one up, short-handled bags. So short-handled bags are most definitely making a comeback. We're going back to the years of Paris Hilton and Britney Spears in the 90s, where they had these small little compact bags that had little handles. So this is a bigger version of that. This is the, I forget the names of things. This is the Lola handbag by Swoon, right? So this one has that it's just the handle strap, right? It is coming back as a trend to have just those handle straps. This one is a little bit bigger, right, of a style. So this one wouldn't be marketed to the younger generation. It'd be probably marketed more to my generation, right, or older. But it still has the trend of the handles, but a bigger style. And so I think sometimes whatever the trend is that is currently the scene, you might want to look for how do you still have the trend, but offer it in a way that fits the market that you're focused on. If you're focused on more people in my age range, or you're focused on a younger crowd, that could be a difference. This bag does not have an area on the side where you could add a crossbody to, but you could easily add, a little like D-ring extension to have a crossbody strap that was added with this bag, to be able to show that you could add some versatility to it. So definitely, think about that when you're thinking about trends. Are there trends that are coming back, but how can you still offer the trend but make it fit who your audience is? I'm going to read some of Shelly's like, I like them, but still need a tote to throw it in. Sarah's, leather to me is classic and I love it, but I do love your hand-dyed fabric. Aw, thanks, Sarah. Shelly's like, I like them, but still need, oh, I'm reading that again. How about some small roller suitcases? Those, are those coming back? I haven't really seen those are like a trend, but maybe. A small roller suitcase. I haven't, are those trends right now? Are those trending right now? Oh my. So, think about what bag styles are. I mean, bum bags and waist bags, they're still a trend. These kind of like all-in-one crossbody bags are still a very big trend that are really, taking back from the 80s, right? Would save your shoulders, honestly. Yeah. Well, and I think that brings in a whole other trend of like, who are you marketing to? And do you add to a bag, your tote bags, do you add one of those sleeves that fits down over a roller suitcase, right? I would say that would probably be more for like if you are doing a quilt show or a quilt market or a sewing expo and you have, that would be something that would definitely, any places that people are doing like travel, that would be a great thing to offer. The other question I have is if you could reinvent a classic bag silhouette for modern wear, what would you change? Which I think for me, the hobo bag is definitely, that's a part of like the 20-year rule right now. We are going to see more hobo bag styles out there. And I really feel like changing the hobo bag to have some of the features of a tote bag where it actually does have some functionality other than a throw all bag, that could definitely be something that I personally would gravitate towards, since I do like my tote bags, but I really love like the kind of styling of a hobo bag. I would love to see someone come out with a pattern that actually has some of the additional features that come with a tote bag patterns, but you put it into a hobo bag. I really haven't seen anybody do a hobo bag, like a traditional hobo bag, but add like function to it. So that would be kind of cool to see. Sling bags are at the top of your list to make, and they're fun, right? So I do think thinking about what are the trends, what's the evolution of bags right now. We're not seeing a lot of super big bags right now, so that brings back to our original thought of like designing tote bags to throw your smaller bag into is going to also be a trend, because we all don't live in a Polly Pocket world. The whole trend that, you know, like we currently have our bag bling bracelets and our charms, really thinking about how else are you bringing that into the other bags, right? So this is not something we're going to do, but I have seen other people doing this, where in sewing in particular, where they're making like different types of keychain, like quilted things or stuffies and things like that, to put onto tote bags, like that they're bigger, right? So thinking about that, like maybe you also make accessories to accessorize the bigger bags, right? Good morning, Linda. Linda saying she just made the snazzy slouch from Chris W. I'm making another one today. It's a hobo style bag. The pattern has a center divider, but I didn't include that. Oh, cool, Linda. Thanks for sharing that. I'll have to go check that out. Because I have been thinking about like making that, making a bag, making a hobo bag, but I've looked at a bunch of patterns and just really haven't found one that I'm in love with. The other thing I have here under trends and evolution is, do you prefer structured or slouchy bags, and why? We kind of went through that with our this and that. But I do think that it's important to kind of look into that and like, why do you really not like slouchy bags? Because I think some of it is probably what we've seen over the past 10 or 15 years from people like Coach and like your name brands. And like really think about the effort it takes, especially when you're sewing to sell, about the effort and the supplies it takes to create structured bags, and then what you have to charge for them. And that, is it really that you don't like slouchy bags, or is it that you just have kind of been programmed to like structured bags? So think about that, because there are a lot of slouchy bags out there that people purchase. So there's that. All right. I also, like, I did write down here, like, if you maybe have like a little, if you have time, but I think this is something that you could probably do, like write out for yourself. You know, what's the most special bag you've ever owned and why? I think is also a really great question to ask yourself. It can spark some personal connection and some storytelling that's super important to have when you're marketing something. I know, like for April, I know April showcases her bags on Instagram. Many of you do, to like sell them and say, hey, these are in my shop. Sometimes adding in that caption a little bit of story around that bag actually makes it sell. So just think about that. You personally stay away from slouchy because of the mess it creates inside. I hear you. But a lot of people, one, pricing, and a lot of people still buy slouchy bags. So I'm trying to encourage you guys to think about that. And like I said, think about like just the most special bag you ever had. And there could be multiple special bags you ever had. Like, I think back to like my first diaper bag with my kids and the things that I really loved about that bag, and how it just really made me feel like I was a put together mom sometimes, and other times it made me feel like I was a hot mess mom. So I do think that there's some ways to kind of pull some storytelling that is really good to have for when you're marketing or when you're talking to someone in your booth about a bag. It's good to kind of fuel that in your brain and have it for conversation. All right. Last is sewing and the DIY perspective of bags. I wanted to talk about that. And some of these you guys have kind of asked already. If you've made your own bag, which silhouette was the most fun? And also which silhouette was the most challenging? So this is where, I do like a good handbag style bag, like a good structured handbag style bag. And the other day, and again, anything I say here is just just my personal perspective. It's like no slights at all to anybody who's a pattern designer, because I could never. I have thought about designing my own patterns. I'm not going to say I could never do it, but I so far have not had the time to do it, because it is a lot of time and effort to do it well. And one of the pattern designers who I think we all know does it very well is Shannon from Knotted Thread Co. And the other day, I printed off the Rowena, however we pronounce it, handbag. And I looked at that pattern, and I've been sewing bags for going on 5 years. I've been sewing for over 20 years. And I looked at that pattern and I was like, I ain't got time for that. And so I'm sure there are people out there sewing their Rowena to sell it, and they sell it. But that bag looked like I have not made it, so I can't say for sure, but that bag looked like there was so much time and effort to make the bag that I was like, I would have to sell it for so much more than what I know my audience is willing to pay, right? If I was selling it at a marketplace. So I do think, kind of thinking about for yourself, if you've made your own bags, which all of us here have, which silhouette was the most fun, which was the most challenging? Because the ones that are fun for you to sew are not only going to be the fun ones for you to sell, but also going to be the least likely to give you problems, the least likely to probably have a whole bunch of bells and whistles that you have to add extra, right? And charge extra for. So the ones that were the most fun are the ones to really think about, like, these are things to have for me to sell. The ones that are challenging, they're skill builders, they're great, and I'm going to tackle the Rowena, but it's probably not going to be one that I make multiple times to sell, just because of my own personal audience. So like to think about that. Shelly says, my demographic is young grandma. Woohoo! That's awesome. So yeah, think about your demographic. Young grandma, what does she need? Shelly's like, my most fun was a train case. Most challenging was a pattern in a different language. Yeah, in different languages, that can most definitely be challenging. But yeah, so that train case, the most fun, that might be one that you decide to add. And maybe you make the train case and it's super simple on the inside, and add some of your artistic flair to the exterior of it, which is super fun. Because train cases, they're a classic silhouette for sure. So yeah. I also have, what classic bag shape do you think works best for like more textured fabrics, maybe hand dyeds or wovens, things. And when I'm saying wovens, I mean like hand wovens, quilted, right? To think about that, because if you want to add something to a classic style bag, sometimes the best thing to do is to add the something with the fabric, right? So whether it's quilting it, whether it's a hand dyed fabric, whether it's a woven fabric, a beaded fabric, sometimes that's where you can take this very classic silhouette and level it up with something that maybe potentially you don't even need to do yourself. So that's also something to think about. And then the other question I have here is, do you prefer making timeless designs or experimenting with trendy shapes? So that's kind of a this or that to think about. I personally, I find that, like I made my little triangle bag to go on my cruise to look like a little piece of cheese. And I enjoyed making that bag, but it really wasn't a bag that I was like, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of these. Many times the bags I find that I want to make more of are very classic silhouettes, and it's like wham bam, thank you ma'am, it went together just fine, right? All right, I'll read here. Hi, Mary Lou. So, Jackie saying, my most fun was the travel pouch from Can Do. It was challenging at first, but as soon as it clicked, I rolled right through it. Mary Lou says, I'm going to make a bunch of Pepin totes and wax canvas with leather accents. I hope they will sell. That's a great pattern, by the way. And then Sarah says, Jackie, I have that pattern on my table to cut. Excited to try it. Yeah. So I think, like just kind of going through some of these questions, and I'll make sure to add them to my blog post. And I'll look through these comments, and I'll add some of the different patterns that you guys have recommended in the different categories. But I do think it's important to think about this, especially if right now you're preparing for these spring and summer markets and fairs, to think about these questions and maybe take a moment and write down your answers in a notebook before you start cutting out and preparing to sew, because it can really help you curate your booth. And I think we all know this if you've done fairs, but the people who sell are the people who have the least cluttered, okay? The people who have things that pull people in. And many times it's people who have a lot of like the same things, right? So to really, I feel for those of us, like I know it because I'm one of them, that when I first started sewing bags, I was like, oh, I love this pattern, and I would make like maybe 5 of these and 4 of these and 2 of these, right? And then I got to my booth, even though I knew these things from doing things in the past, my table was more confusing because there was so many different things there that it made people come and look and be like, oh, that was nice, and leave, right? But if you have maybe 3 different styles to choose from, and you're kind of sticking with the kind of same types of silhouettes, kind of the same type of fabrics, like it can really help people there's so much going on in the world as it is. It helps people narrow in and be like, I really love that tote bag with that matching crossbody. That's what I want, right? So just think of that. All right. My last kind of little design kind of engagement thing for you guys to think about is a design challenge. And I think this could be fun to put in the comments. I think I might actually even make a post for this over in my Facebook group for you all. If you could design the perfect everyday bag, all right? Which I'm not asking you to design the perfect everyday bag, but when we ask the question about what do you look at first? Do you look at form over function, or function over form, or both? If you could design the perfect everyday bag, what 3 features would it have to include? What are the 3 things that you're like, I'm not going to, back down on this? Every bag needs these 3 things. It has to have them. So definitely, I think that could be a fun one to kind of look at the answers for those of you who are, because we're going to maybe see, and this is what I think will happen, we're going to start seeing some of those same things be very similar with each other, right? And so if we're seeing that the majority of people say you need to have that key fob clip, Shelly, right? You know what? When you're making your bags, even if that pattern doesn't call for that key fob clip, maybe we need to make sure we start adding a key fob clip into every single one of our bags if we're going to be selling them. Even if it is like a Tracy, clutch, a Tracy wristlet, add that little key fob clip, because no matter what size your bag is, you can lose stuff, right? The slip pocket. Does it need to have an exterior zipper one, or does it just need a slip pocket that you can slip your phone in? So I would definitely, answer it here. Please let me know what are the 3 things you feel are must-have things in every bag. And then I'll make a post over in my Facebook group as well, so that we can kind of answer that question together. Because I do think that that's probably one of the things that could really help everyone with their markets, is whatever pattern you choose, great, but maybe add those 3 features, like pick 3 features and you say to yourself, I'm going to add this to every single bag I make because I know that it's what people look for, and go from there. So I'm going to read some of the comments because I wasn't reading them there for a little while. I was just talking. Where was I at here? Okay. So Shelly says, I agree. Sarah, I agree. I don't have a lot of extra time these days, and supplies can be expensive if it doesn't work out. Definitely. So I think that's also something too, is think about your time, the amount of supplies. We're not having that conversation today, but I do think that that's a big, important thought when you're planning for markets is, and also why I wanted to talk about classic silhouettes, because all of these silhouettes that I just shared with you today, the majority of them don't have a lot of hardware, and that's why, like, you know, snaps, zippers, all of it, it's a lot. That's money, right, that you have to charge for. And potentially, depending on your area, that money could take away from the money you make back with your time. So really think about, you know, what silhouettes you're doing, and the hardware that you are using is super important, and the time you have to do it. Sarah says, yes, me too. As a beginner, I only bought pieces as I go, so hopefully it works out. Mary Lou, do you think adding embroidery will add to the interest? So Mary Lou, totally. And I think that kind of goes into when I was sharing about, you know, how do you add some kind of texture, something to a simple classic bag, right? And I'm sorry if you hear hollering outside. My father-in-law is Pennsylvania Dutch, and they holler to speak. And I think he's outside talking to my husband who's working on our car. So they're not having an argument. That's how he talks. But totally, I think any classic shape bag, adding that embroidery can totally be something that pulls people in. And what I would definitely think about when it comes to embroidery, because I used to own a embroidery machine, and that's a whole other rabbit hole, Mary Lou, that you go down of embroidery designs. I would try to think about what are simplistic embroidery designs, because the time it takes for you to get that piece embroidered, what are some things that are less detailed embroidery that's going to take you a ton of time to do a piece, and just something that can kind of be a little bit more on that classic scale, right? So think, not that people, please hear me out here, not that there aren't people who make a lot of money doing embroidery designs that are more detailed. I just think you're embroidering it and then taking the time to then make it too. So just keep in mind your time that you're putting into it. Let's see. April says, that was my SU2 when I did my first show. Next one, I need to hone in better. Yeah, I feel over time you do get much better, right? But when we're first learning to sew something new or something fun, we just try everything. I think sometimes you can definitely put all of that on a website to sell, right? Because I do feel the online world is a very different world than people walking through a market. But when you're in a market, trying to narrow it down of like, these are the 3 patterns that I'm going to focus on, and the 3 types of silhouettes, and it can make things look more clean and just less overwhelming for your shoppers. April's, I felt like I needed to have a variety in all things, fabrics, bag styles, accessories. I think the simpler the better. Durability, so now we're getting into our 3 things. So durability, a key fob foam pocket, exterior slip pocket, interior zipper pocket, key fob clip, interior zipper pocket, slip pocket closure, phone on the outside, as well as room for glasses inside, zipper. Yep. So Mary Lou, I definitely not, but I want to point this out. Right there, we saw a very difference in just demographic, right? So those of us who are moving on to the bifocals or the reading glasses, that is becoming an important thing. So if your demographic would be that, like that's who you're kind of focused on, then having something that attaches your glass case to the zipper, to the key fob thing on the inside of a bag could be a great upsell, right? So having the little glass case with a little clipper, and then in all of your bags that you have there, your tote bags, you could have a little clip and say, well, here you can put your keys, but you can also put your glass case. To me, that would upsell those glass cases instead of people passing them by, because don't get me wrong, glass cases are a great seller and they're a low cost seller as well. But it is a way to either upsell the glass case or upsell the tote bag at your markets. Let's see. Mary Lou's like, we're thinking alike. My exterior slip pocket comment was for my phone and my glasses. Spencer Oak has a great pattern for a built-in glasses pouch. I love Diane. I need to go check that out. Do you know what pattern that is, Shelly? I'd love to know what pattern that is. Janetta, slip pocket, key fob, phone pocket. You're welcome, Mary Lou. That's me. I want it all, but whoa, slow down. Large pocket zipper pouch. I'll be able to attach key holder or lip balm. Yeah, totally. So I think just there alone, I think we've brainstormed a bunch of different options for everybody to think about. But I wanted to have this talk because, one, I thought this would be a good topic for a blog post. In my blog post, what you're going to see, and I'm going to like kind of just bring it up for myself so I know I'm saying the right things. I'm going to kind of go into 6 different classic bag silhouettes. Unfortunately, backpacks aren't going to be a part of it because I feel like backpacks kind of have another area that I want to talk about, which is travel bags. Okay. Not that people can't use a backpack for an everyday bag, but I almost feel like mini backpacks actually fall more in a satchel place in my brain. But we're gonna kind of talk about the 6 different classic silhouettes. I'm going to give some options, so please share the patterns that you were sharing here. I'm going to go through this list and kind of pull some of those out, as well as other options that we've all discussed together. But then I'm also going to put in this blog post a little bit about timeless patterns in fabrics, because I think, being someone who my business is all cotton woven or organic fabrics, right? I know there's a big debate on what people like and what people don't like on their bags because, you know, the vinyls and the leathers and so forth. But there is something to be said about classic fabric design and seeing that on bags. It doesn't mean that it can't be with characters or it can't be with other fun things, but I do think there is something to be said about some classic fabric design and how you use it. So there'll be a little brief bit in this blog post about that. And maybe if the blog post is a hit and everybody loves this video, maybe the next time we have a talk, we'll talk a little bit about what Jackie is saying. How do you feel about using liquid vinyl on cotton bases? I think there is a lot of good sources out there for things. I think it all comes with whatever is on the warning label of whatever you're using. I personally just starch all of my cotton, but I know, like Minnie the Mountains, Jen, she's used a coating on several of my fabrics now, and it looks great. So I think there are a lot of options out there for us, but we'll save that conversation, I guess, for another day. But I hope this was helpful for you all. I hope that, yeah, starching, I would recommend, if you're using cotton woven fabrics on your exteriors or even in your interiors, starching them before you like do your whole process to get them ready to make. It just helps for the long lastedness of your project, and for people to spot clean something. I am a big advocate of using cotton wovens on the exteriors of bags only, especially if it's a quilt cotton level fabric. I think that's the first thing to say, is that it is a certain level weight of cotton woven. I don't recommend just everything, but people have been using cotton wovens on quilts for years, and your quilts are meant to last you for generations, right? So I feel like that's a good selling point to use cotton wovens on your bags. All right. You're welcome, everybody. April says, this discussion is just what I needed. I feel like so much more has happened in these 2 months of 2025 that I lost direction in my sewing business. You are not alone, girl. There is so much happening in just the exterior of our lives. So I also felt like this would be a good conversation for that specific reason. There's so much going on that we can all get very much bogged down with. But I will tell you something from, I guess, a little bit of wisdom experience of running my own creative business for the past, hey, Diana, I mean, over 20 years, I've had some sort of side hustle, side hobby business. The best times to capitalize on this, your type of like business, is now, when everyone else can't pay attention. If you can hone in, you can really make a go at it. And I will say, I didn't realize that I was doing that back when I started my dyed fabric, but it was a time where there were changes happening that I wasn't really thinking about. But now I see that they were there, that it was the right time for me to focus on something. So I would really encourage you, like, yes, there's so much that is going on, and that we want to be a part of, to do things that make a difference. But this could be the thing that makes a really big difference for you. So I want to really encourage, if this can help you do that, I'm so glad I was able to help you do that. Sarah says, yes, I agree. Definitely needed this today for motivation. Hearts to you too, Sarah. Yes, this was motivating and helps me focus. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me this morning. I feel like us doing one of these kind of live Q&As, talks, discussions on a topic has, at least the past few times, felt like super fun and really beneficial. So maybe we'll make this something where it gives me a break, because I find I do need to have a break from the sewing myself. But it's a really great way for us to be able to kind of, me to share some knowledge that I have, but also for all of you to receive that. So we'll maybe make this a trend, right? All right, everyone, have a great Sunday. I'm going to go and pack some orders from our birthday bash sale. If you did get a Saya Swag calendar, everyone, my code that is on that calendar for our Charm by TBH line will last for the rest of this month, so until the 28th, and it is used on everything, not just the bag bling bracelets, but for our entire Charm by TBH line. You can use that on, and if you did order a spring pre-order, we are working on it, and hopefully in the next week or so, we will start getting those orders out to everyone. So thank you, everyone, and have a great Sunday. See you next week.